The end of 2019 is quickly approaching. So what can we expect from the cattle markets for the rest of the year? Joining us now to talk about the fall outlook is Kevin Good with CattleFax. Kevin, have you and your team been surprised by anything in the cattle markets this last year?
Well, so looking to this year in particular, the supplies have been right on spot, just a little bit bigger from a cycle standpoint. Demand has held up exceptionally well. Of course, the wild card has been the plant fire in Holcomb, Kansas. And because of that, the last couple of months have been rather rough for all cattlemen. Depressed prices, lack of profitability. Now, as we go forward, hopefully that problem will be rectified and we can see these markets improve.
You bet. You mentioned consumer demand. I'm curious to get your take on consumer demand, both here at home as well as the international demand.
As we think about the demand, there are two prongs there. The domestic side has been exceptional this year. As we think about it, more people are working and wages are going up faster than the rate of inflation, so there's more dollars to be spent. Beef continues to be the preferred protein, and so we've actually seen more pounds go through retail at higher prices. That's the formula for true improvements in demand. Now, when we look at the export market, it has been a little bit disappointing. Of course, we've had the tariffs and some of the trade wars that have held us back. As we think of it in particular, exports this year, when it's all said and done, are going to be down a couple percent compared to last year after 3 years of double-digit gains. So we're a little bit disappointed there, but we're pretty optimistic as we go into 2020 for trade, especially with the new deal signed with Japan.
That was good news and should be encouraging to all of us in the cattle business. One group that we've heard a lot of lately is cattle feeders. They've had some tough times, and I'd be curious to know, what are your projections as we finish out 2019, particularly for cattle feeders?
As we think about the fed cattle market in particular, we do think we put a very long-term low in the market here about 45 days ago after the plant fire there in Holcomb, Kansas. And so at that point in time, prices were sub $1. Here recently we've seen the market improve. As we go through the remainder of the year and also into the first quarter of 2020, we do think the market will be rather seasonal and improve as we go forward on into the springtime of next year.
And let's talk cow-calf producers. For those folks that may be weaning right now and looking to sell calves between now and the end of the year, what would you tell them?
It's an unfortunate event as we think about the lower prices the last couple months. We knew that this year was going to be tougher because of increased supplies. We have expanded for 6 straight years. But nonetheless, this has added a little bit more downside pressure. If we look at a 5.5 weight steer calf U.S. average, they're trading about 150, 155 as we talk about October here. As we go through the remainder of the year, we've got to get through the fall run, and so price is probably going to be pretty flat in that range over the next 30 to 60 days.
Yeah. If they have feed, do you think they're better off keeping them on into early part of next year?
As we think about where we're at within the cattle cycle, and that's an excellent question because the spread between feeder cattle and calves is rather narrow. And so it does make sense logically to go ahead and retain ownership on a percentage of your calf crop, at least as you go into 2020. I think this is a time frame from a cycle standpoint. Those prices are compressed. It does make very good sense.
Let's talk grain markets. Many people are hitting the fields. It's been an interesting year with lots of different forecasts in terms of how much corn is actually out there. What's your take?
You're spot on. It has been interesting. And as we go into the harvest over the next 30, 45 days and get through the harvest by the end of the year, really the yield is a driver in here. Everybody knows we've got a few less acres that are probably going to get harvested. At the same time, the yields, as they've coming from the south, working to the north, we also have the threats of an early frost and freeze, as we think about here as we go through the remainder of October and on into November. So the bottom line is, in our opinion, you're probably in a trading range. As you think about spot corn over the last 4 years, with the exception of a blow off top a couple times, you've been kind of $3.30 at the bottom, $4 at the top. You probably spend a lot of time as you go through the remainder of 19 on into 2020. Let's say $3.50 to $4 as far as the spot corn is concerned.
So get your crystal ball out and tell me, is it too early to begin thinking about 2020? What do you see in the 2020 market?
There's positives and there's negatives as you think about the next 12 months. In particular, or if you think about where we're at from a cycle standpoint, we have expanded for 6 straight years. Pork and poultry have expanded as well. They've added capacity in their packing plants, and because of that, we will have bigger supplies. Now, on the other side of the coin, we are very optimistic that trade will pick up in 2020. You know, in the beef side, part of that's a negotiated trade with Japan. That should be very positive. Also, as we think about African swine fever, that is going to open up more doors for export of all proteins as we go forward over the next couple of years. So that will offset some of the production increase. Probably not all, though. And because of that, where we're at within the cycle, we would have to suggest that prices will probably be similar, if not maybe a tick lower as we think about it, just because of secular bigger supplies.
Gotcha. Kevin, we always appreciate you all's insight. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for more than 5 decades, CattleFax has been providing producers with the tools they need to make profitable decisions. If you're looking for top-notch beef industry research, information, and analysis, then visit the website cattlefax.com.